Okay, in the shop today, got some exciting updates. As it turns out, a buddy of mine, actually an old golf buddy, owns a powder coating shop, and I talked to him, worked out a price, and I'm going to be getting this frame brought in, powder coated, and be blasted before it gets powder coated and all that. We're going to rent a U-Haul car trailer, and my buddy's going to come, and we'll lower this frame onto there, drive it out to the shop, and let them go to town on it. So what this means for me now is that I need to get this thing ready to be moved and to get powder coated. So there's a little bit of welding and repair that I need to do on it. I've talked about it before in another video, but I'll go ahead and show you that right now. So one thing that I haven't shown is right here on one of the cab, I think this is either a cab mount or a box mount. This is probably box actually, but there is a crack right here. So I'll just go ahead and clean that up and weld her. And then the other thing that I did talk about quite a bit is down here, this whole bottom chunk is rusted out of this cross member and needs to be cut out and replaced. Normally I would think you'd probably want to do some bracing to support it, but this has already, see if I can show you, this is already detached along the bottom here. So I'll just go ahead and cut all the rotted stuff out around here and weld some new stuff in, and I think at that point it should be ready to ship it out and get her powder coated. Okay, so I've got this quick reference line out of tape here. I'll just cut on the top side of that, get all that rusty crud out of there, and figure out a plan moving forward. Well, I felt like I was due for a win, and I think it just came. This piece here, just peeled this off an old Ziploc box. It wasn't cut, it just peeled off all the way around, and I think it's pretty much exactly the size I need, so I can use it for a template. Basically what I'm going to do, try and show this, I'm going to overlap the top section a ways like that, and that way it gives me a bit of options for welding it. Initially this cross member here was like that and then came up, and as you can see some of that metal is still remaining. This rivet here, I can't move that, and it's kind of tight to work in here anyways, so I think what I'm going to do is clean up the bottom of this frame so it's all nice bare metal. I'm going to cut out a piece like this. I'll drill a big hole so that it fits around this rivet here, and then I'm going to tuck it underneath, kind of have it here, and then fold it around the bottom there. Okay, I've got the piece traced out. I'm going to pull out the plasma cutter and go ahead and cut it out. All right, plasma time. Sorry. Okay, now comes the task of shaping this to fit. There's going to be two bends that need to happen. This is going to sit underneath the frame, so I need to bend that up. And then the angle that the remaining section of cross member comes down at is a little bit different, so it's going to need to kind of come up from the bottom of the frame and then sort of fold over again, so it'll have a bit of an S-curve. All right, I'm going to go test that on the frame. Okay, now I'm going to try and bend the top side. Basically, it's going to sit about like that. Next thing I got to do, there's this rivet here going through, so I'm going to have to notch a hole in this so that this sits right up against the frame and isn't interfering with that rivet at all. So this is something, I'm going to use a step drill to go through this, but this is something I would like to get this mark pretty much perfect on the first try, so all I can do is kind of eyeball it, but okay, let's give that a try. Well, now I just pray to God that it's in the right spot. All right, well, I've got it pretty much ready to fit. Everything sits in there as it ought to, and it should be just fine. This hole ended up lining up pretty good. The only problem I have is that the frame rail that goes along here has a little bit of a jog up right here. So what I'm going to do is weld the top part to the cross member, and then I'll weld over here and along to about there where the frame starts to move. And then once this is good and hot, I'll take a hammer and kind of bash this into place so it fits really well, and then I'll continue to weld it around. So this is the piece sitting in here. It doesn't sit perfect with the clamp. I'll probably start it by hand. As you can see, there's a bit of a gap in here, but it does fit when you hold it over by hand. So I'll go ahead and weld that up. Underneath here, that's where that hole is for the rivet. And as you can maybe see, there's a bit of a jog in the frame, so this part here isn't really touching, even though this side is. So I'll weld around that, like I was saying, get everything good and hot, and then I'll give that a few taps with a hammer and get it into place, and then sort of weld around it. Now let's have a look at these welds. I can run a bead if it's like flat and clean on a bench. I really struggle with, you know, out of position type stuff or overhangs or that kind of thing. I mean, we have to keep in mind this wasn't even attached on the bottom, so this is already, you know, light years better than it was. So I did one in there, which you know, none of them are show quality welds, but you know, it should be considerably better than it was. Under here did not go well. This is definitely my toughest type of welding to do. But, you know, it's connected. Okay, next up I'm gonna cut some pieces that go down here, kind of thing. I don't like grinding welds, but had a little boo-boo here. I'm gonna clean this up a little bit, but I'm definitely a fan of just keeping all the metal on there that you can. So, like I had mentioned before, you know, welding weird positions and stuff, I definitely struggle at it. Okay, well I got that all welded up. Like I said before, I don't really like grinding welds, but I figure I would just sort of smooth this out a little bit. You can probably criticize all sorts of aspects of this technique, but the one thing you cannot argue with is that it is stronger right now than it was when I got here. As you may remember, this whole bottom chunk was just completely detached. So it's all new metal. It's all lap welds that are welded on both sides. So, you know, it's definitely an improvement, and I feel comfortable moving forward from here. So there we go. Okay, well, it didn't go that smoothly, but I got her welded up. Did both sides. There, it's really shiny. I had a blowout right there, as you can probably tell. My air compressor that I got off Craigslist that works great is going into thermal shutdown mode after like 3 seconds of running. So not going to be able to do any more on that today, but I got to clean that up a little bit, and then underneath just make it a little bit flatter so that the washer sits nice, but overall it's welded up and should be good to go. Okay, well, the frame is ready to be shipped off and powder coated. I have to tell you, that is such a weight off my mind. I would have been fine with sort of getting through it myself, but one big issue is that my air compressor is becoming extremely unreliable. So that would have been challenging, and also the fumes in this little shop get really bad. If it's summertime or something and you can just sort of open the door often, then that's one thing, but it's really hard to heat this shop up in the first place, so I don't know how smart that would be to be constantly opening the door and letting the fumes out. So long story short, you know, I'm completely fine with sending this off and getting it done. And I would say any other vehicle project I do in the future, I would most likely just ship the frame off, get it powder coated and sandblasted and all that. Next up, I'm going to jump into doing the transfer case on the next video. I'm going to pull it apart and rebuild it.
I have to say I've had enough of this frame, and I'm really looking forward to getting into something else. This is really dragged on. You know, it was ridiculous. That was just such a pain to get through. But anyways, you know, live and learn, and we'll get on to the next thing. But transfer case is coming up in the next video. So thanks for sticking around and watching. Hope you have a good day. Take care.